Hey everyone. So let's just start. We got a ton to go over here. We just drop this link in and then I will be able to go from there. But I really want to focus on a couple of core things that I'm seeing going, and we're going to start doing these at 8:15. I think it makes a lot of sense to start these a little earlier than what we're doing. Also going to start probably implementing Fridays again and just getting us there with Fridays. So just something to think about. Um, I just think I'm better off doing it and just keeping it consistent instead of cutting out that Friday, since I moved some other things around in the Apple Chasers community. So something again, just be aware of it. We're probably going to start doing Fridays now. I just want to go over what I'm seeing. All these names, all these car companies, they're all moving. So I think a lot of people are getting pretty excited about seeing this rise. Uh, I don't think in car prices, and I don't think that's going to stop. So you could see some push on this. You could see some pushback on Carvania too. So we're going to really have to watch how that goes here. Um, Now they're way overextended if you kind of take a look at where you're at on the RSI, but don't rule these out just yet. See if maybe you can get some kind of pullback. You're coming in the numbers. You're obviously going to want to see how you act going into numbers and kind of go from there, right? And you are seeing these car companies that are just continuing to push. So let's take a look at Tesla, for example. Yep, we're over on the RSI here, but you get through 199. That doesn't stop you from going to 228. So there's definitely things here where we can push higher. And I think that's something that we're really going to have to watch and something we're really going to have to pay attention to. I would not rule this out. Okay, I would not rule these out just yet. But if you start breaking these levels and start getting above these wicks on Tesla, like that 199 area, you're probably going to get up here and you're probably going to test that 200-day moving average at some point, and probably fairly quickly. So I think that's something that should be on everybody's radar. If you kind of drill into this on a 15-minute, go to your indicators and just see where you're at, you can see that level right in here and how you're holding that 186 level, right? So really right here, let's get super specific. You got down to that 183, the bottom you gap filled in here, and then you opened down on the third, and look what you did. You basically opened right down into that line, and then you held. So there's something to be said about that, and then you just absolutely ripped. And you really just want to watch what's going on here. But if we can flip up here, I'd be very interested in this. And let's just go back on an hourly so you can kind of see where you're at, and drill into this a little bit more and kind of see this level right in here, and then kind of get that gap fill's kind of been an issue. And give another little line right here, which you just probably point out so you can see it. So that that could be another part of that, and this could have been something where it's more of a minor area where you try to get up to it and then just stopped and flipped, right? But I don't really view that as something I'm going to pay attention to. I'd be more interested in this gap down, and then how we bonked on here, how we rode that level, and then how you stayed in here, right? 175 seems to be the next stop if we broke this level up here. So, and that level is 193. Let's click off one of these so you can see it, and we'll go from there. Now, you can see where you're at with Tesla, and you can see how you're at that 199, that 183, and that 175. Don't rule this out because the RSI is where the RSI is, right? Just don't rule that out. It's definitely something that's going to be on my radar today. You just have to look at where you are in placement to the indexes right now. But all these little names, all these little car companies, they all, this is fascinating because I think it's a zero and it's hanging in there. I would watch them. I'd watch them really, really closely. That said, there's other names that are just beating earnings and exceeding estimates. This is something we have in the newsletter. If you don't get the newsletter, there's a link in the description. It comes out daily, and the format has changed greatly, and that's why it wasn't coming out for some time. But more like big picture, but also tons of ideas. So, and it's free. But this is something we did in the newsletter and in the Apple Chasers community. Now you are coming into earnings, right? So I always want to make sure we entered at 446. So I always want to make sure that I'm up at least 10% going into earnings so that I can't get killed and that I pull money out, right? So at least I make something on the trade, right? And these were just the notes for the Alpha Chaser community. But the point that I'm getting at is you're coming in today and you've got really good news, and it looks like we're going to open about 5% higher. So if you're interested in this name, I would not rule this out. Now, why am I saying not to rule it out? Because everybody that was in here on Friday, what did they do? Let's get rid of this so you can see it. What did they do on Friday? They got out of the way before earnings, right? They didn't want to take the earnings risk. So you have all those people that sold that wanted to be in the name that are right here. Okay, they got out. Said, I'm just going to get out. Look at all these wicks. I just broke the lower low. I'm going to get out of the trade, right? It's always helpful to think like how somebody that's in there that has a profit thinks. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with taking that profit, right? But if you really drill into this, you might see this, and I'm just going to put it in there anyway. You can kind of see that trend line right there, and maybe you think about cloning that a little bit and seeing if that fits it anywhere up here. It kind of does, doesn't it? So now you kind of have this rising channel. You kind of drill that channel out and take a look, and then go put the pre and the post back in and go, okay, well, that's interesting. We're opening up right on it. Well, if you flip an upper channel, you have the ability to push a lot higher. And that might be the case here, considering how good earnings were. And I haven't listened to the conference call yet, but you want to watch this. I'd watch this exactly where it is, and then I'd watch the 517, 518 level. I think that's pretty important as well. Now let's go through, see if we have any questions. And let's just get into it here. What's going on, John? Cruise, ADI, AI. Yep. So the AI trade, I know a lot of people are circling this. Look, it looks to me like this stuff's finally coming home to roost and making a little sense, and people want to be involved with it, right? So I would not rule it out. My concern with these kinds of trades is this RSI is through the trade. It's just through the roof. So it's not sustainable, right? It's just not. So there will be a pullback. The question is just when, how far down will you be, on that pullback. You look at volume's through the roof, but this is due for some kind of major correction. This is just not very realistic to get up here and to stay that on a daily chart. I mean, if you want to just get super specific, I don't think even when it came out, it's never been this overbought. So it doesn't mean that it can't continue. What it means to me is that, wait for, if I want to do anything more than a day trade, you have to be looking at pullbacks on this. But this definitely is shaping up here. I mean, there's very little to say about that. You can see that level right in here. You flipped it, right? 1, 2, 3, and then you flipped it, you pushed. You can see in here, 1, 2, 3. You're setting up the same pattern over and over again, and it just keeps ripping, right? 1, 2, 3, boom. 1, 2, 3, boom. So usually here you get another sideways action and then lift. I'm not so sure that's what's going to happen today or what we do here, but I'm not saying to not rule these out as trades, but just understand where you are in that trade, right? You don't want to be the last one holding this. And if I'm somebody like AI, and just FYI, take a look at this company, and I'm bleeding money, right? I've been bleeding money and missing earnings since I started, right? What a great time to come out and do a secondary and raise some capital, right? What a great time. Your stock was just at $11, now you're at 27, right? What a great time to come out and do something like that. If I was the CEO, that's what I would do. And that's definitely something I'd be paying attention to. So I'd be real careful there. I'm not saying not to do that trade. I'm just saying that just be aware of it. It's definitely a concern of mine. And I think we're going to see more and more rotation. Names like Cirrus Logic, these names look absolutely amazing on these breaks. And this is one I can tell by the blue lines that I've not looked at in some time. What I would suggest is that just understand, does this continue? Probably not. So you probably want to see if you can get a pullback, form a flag, and then push. I don't really see this as something that I want to be involved with, quite frankly. I mean, it's just too much. Like I don't even know where your stop is. Where's your stop going to go? I mean, down here. So, I mean, that's when the trade's broken. If you drill into this on a 15-minute, like, there's nothing there, right? So, I have another screen up that pulls these up. So, but I mean, there's nothing there. I mean, there's literally no support until you get to here. So, I'm not really sure how you set a limit on that unless you're looking at a day trade and then you would just use an intraday level. But I don't know. I don't see that as something that I would be rushing into. Why I'm on the thing and going through this, I want to go through, EMPH, just FYI, see this level back here? Okay. This is where people have been in since 2022. That is the anchored VWAP from 2022. Okay. I'm always interested in this stuff and look at how they're rejecting it. Okay. So in other words, tried to flip, tried to hold support. Support on that level flipped to what? Resistance, right around that 233.66. You have earnings. You have a lot of people that are going to want to play this for earnings. And candidly, if I was short this, I would not want to be shorted into earnings. I mean, look at the last two earnings events. Do you think you want to be there for that? I mean, I know that I don't want to be there for that. So definitely something to think about and to watch today, but just be aware of that. Now, pins as well is going to come out, and you'll see these levels down here. I'd love to continually fill that gap and then possibly find a spot to get more involved. I have a position in this and I'm okay with it, and quite well actually. But I have a very, very long-term outlook on this trade. So we'll see what happens with it, and we'll see what they do for earnings and see how that goes. I don't know if they're going to do a buyback. I have no idea how the stock's going to act. The issue with Snap really wasn't their earnings. The issue with Snap was just lack of guidance. That provided a really nice buying opportunity for Meta, quite frankly. So just something to think about there. Another sector that I don't think people are looking at that I would tell you to start looking at, you need to start looking at the regional banks, okay, and start looking for sectors that are breaking out that don't have huge RSIs, right? So let me show you what I mean by this. So here's the RSI, right, on financials, but look at where you're at. Like you're hardly breaking out, and that's exactly what you're looking for. That's exactly what you want to see. You want to put yourself in a position. Bad audio on my T stream. Really? Hold on one second. You're canny. Sound quality is different today. Hold on. Thanks for saying something. They put me on this crisp. I'm going to have to delete this crisp. I apologize, guys. How about that? Is that better? That probably turned out to be better. That's probably, let me know if that's better. Just let me know. It should be. All right, good. Better. All right. Yeah, I downloaded this app that's supposed to get rid of background noise, and it seems like all it does is make me sound like the teacher from Charlie Brown. Sorry about that. So now maybe that's what the problem was. I don't know. It just was in crisp. So I don't know. I would look at those names. I would just be real careful of anything that is semiconductor right now, because you've come so far so fast. And, I see the golden cross. I would still have a long bias. I'm not going to go out there and short anything. And although you could probably make money doing it, it's just not how I'm going to trade this with this kind of environment, because it could just keep pushing, right? Like you could pull back to a level like here, like 63, and then just push again, right? Work it off, push, work it off, push. And that's something that I really have to take a look at and really think about. So, we'll see how that goes. But it's definitely something where I would be looking for the other sectors. I'd be looking for sectors like this. And go look at stocks hitting 52-week highs. All the regional banks are hitting 52-week highs. So, and you might see some weakness in the market today with the new CPI number that came out. And we'll see what's going on there, see how that plays itself out. Can I talk about why there's a divergence between, what's up, Bri, at Tesla and the NQ? Yep. So I actually went over this earlier, but the best performing sector right now is auto manufacturers. Now, you wouldn't know that by looking at something like Ford, and you certainly you just wouldn't know that, right? But the best performing sector out there right now is auto manufacturers, and they're just going to keep going, in my opinion. I think that that's what we're starting to see here now. Get rid of this other data. You know, GM has this enormous base, right? And you should be able to see this, but I'm going to just draw it in, right? I'm not going to do it. I'll do it with just a trend line. You can see how you're making higher lows, and you've been for a period of time, right? Well, just FYI, if I just stayed here, right, and was able to get above, like, let's say this level, which looks like a high of 42.5, which is less than 5% away, right? You're going to get to a point with about March or April in here that you're going to be hitting 52-week highs. So you're going to start seeing these names. People are start seeing GM light up the 52-week high list, and it's going to get pretty interesting. So I think it's moving because it's auto manufacturers, and it's tied the most to auto manufacturers out there. That's what I think. But that whole sector is moving. That's the hottest sector out there right now, year to date. Nothing's outperforming auto manufacturers. And, you know, Tesla's a very large part of that. Now, if you look at the NASDAQ, no, the NASDAQ's overbought. I mean, the NASDAQ in and of itself, so is Tesla. Let me be really clear about this. So is Tesla. But the NASDAQ is more overbought than that stock, right? And now I've got this wonky little bar that's a gravestone, and I'm going to break below it. You know, that's not really where you want to be. You don't want to be making a lower low, and now you have to see where you're going to, you know, where you're going to get to with that. So I would be really careful with the NASDAQ today. And again, I've been saying for some time, I think we're due for a little bit of a pullback here. You know, so I'm just kind of biding my time and waiting for them to set up again. And, you know, I wouldn't be doing a whole heck of a lot this morning. You know, people might be a little afraid of Powell tomorrow too, but that's the discrepancy that you're saying. And I'd be paying attention to those discrepancies, Brian. You're on to something by paying attention to them. I'd be going through those names and going, well, what names are up today? Because that's going to tell you what's going to wind up pushing. And you can see names like even IDXX or names like Tesla continuing to push, right? Even if the NASDAQ goes down. Okay. I would not be surprised to see the S&P go down, right? But maybe it doesn't go down as much as we think, because you're going to see people step into Apple. Okay. I'm not so sure how weak Apple's going to stay. I'm not so sure on that. It's something that I would watch, but I'm not so sure that Apple stays very, you know, very weak there. So just something to think about there, right? And kind of play with, and we'll see where it leads us. But that's kind of where my head is. I don't really see the sense in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I guess is the way to say it. But you need to be cognizant of where you're at here and what you're breaking this morning and where you're at in the pecking order, because you're not in a position where you should be going crazy. This is a gravestone. I went over this in Saturday's video. If you haven't seen it, watch it. But that's a gravestone to me. And it's clear rejection of everything that's up in here, right? This was giddy Thursday because of Meta, and this is Friday because of reality, right? So, you know, you have a market. The market looks fine to me, but very healthy market. I know people don't think that, but it is. If you look at the underpinnings and the subsectors and how everything's trading, but it does not mean that you can't pull back 5%. You absolutely could. And that's really what I'm looking for. I'm looking for some kind of pullback before I deploy more capital. So I hope that helps. Yeah, I got to get rid of the crisp, but I got to get something better than crisp. I don't know. I'll look into it. I'll figure it out. SB is a cup and handle pattern September. Yeah, I think that, look, I think you're fine with the S&P long term, but I think there's more to it. So let me get to this and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're going to get rid of the volume and just zoom in on this. Let me get rid of my notes and all my annotations. And I see what you're talking about with this cup. I see this wonky handle, maybe even call this the handle. Now you're breaking out of it. Yeah, I mean, there's very little to say about that. This is a cup and handle. You know, here's that V, and you should be able to see it, but I'll just put it in. you're seeing things like this, and you're seeing these divergences, or you're seeing this change, right? You're seeing it pretty clearly. Like, that's really hard to miss, right? That you're forming a V down here, and you can see your cup right here and your handle. If you go back a little further, right, and you go to the weekly, you just kind of take a look at what's going on. One of the things I keep pointing out is just, okay, well, now we're back above the 55 week. Okay. Now we held the 200 week. You can't rule that out. Like, you can't just rule that out and say, oh, we're going to sell down because the market's so bad. You have to look at like the internals and how much stuff is being bought, what's happening with earnings. Now, next quarter, if earnings are a disaster, you could have a completely different story in the market, but we're speculating on what earnings are going to be next quarter. I don't know that they're going to be as bad as everyone's making them out to be. And I think it's really interesting. You had Larry Summers go on TV on CNN saying it looks like they're going to pull off a soft landing. The probability of pulling off a soft landing looks realistic. And he's been a huge critic of this Fed, just a huge critic of them, that they're, pretty aloof and they're not listening to him. And I do agree with them. I think they are somewhat aloof, but I found that comment interesting. But if you look at the S&P and you look at where you're at right now and how you're acting in here, yeah, I think you're fine. Now, if you overlay just the simplest of indicators and throw in something like RSI, right, and you just kind of see and go, okay, well, that's interesting, right? So maybe you can pick that up, or maybe you don't see it. So let me just show it to you. This is pretty rare to see in a weekly chart, right? It's pretty rare to see, and most people are probably going to miss it, but it's there. Okay. It's there. So you have this positive divergence that's going on right there. And I would not rule that out. I'd be paying attention to that. You can see that, right? So that's down, that's up. That's on a weekly chart, guys. So I don't know that that's going to happen. And there's some other really important things that are going on here on a weekly chart, right? Like, I don't know that you're going to break that. And, there's your level on RSI, right? Okay. So you have a major divergence here, like major, right? No one's really talking about it or seeing it, but okay. So here's my high, here's my high, here's my high. Now I'm up here and the stock's here and the index is there. Like, this looks like it could be an absolute face ripper, but I'm feeling that we have to pull back before we go. But, we'll see. We'll see if if that's what happens or not. I'm thinking that we come back, we backfill, and then push. Maybe we don't. And so, I'd watch this very, very closely. But yeah, I think you're on to something there, John. I definitely do. CLFT and Mara. So let's take a look at this and drill into it. CFLT. Yeah. So these kinds of names that are flipping over this 200, you want to pay attention to. The most important thing to pay attention to when you see those kinds of names is just drill into volume and see what's going on with the volume. Okay. And just make sure that you have volume and you have a absolute ton of volume in that name. So I could see why people would look at it. I get that. It's definitely something that I would be paying attention to. Sure. If I was interested in that name, look at the volume. I mean, it's through the roof. And you'll look at it on a relative basis, which I tend to do. Just put in relative volume and you take a look at what's going on there, and you're spiking. You're seeing some real interest there. And that's what you want to see. So we'll have to see how that goes and go from there. Okay. Now, other than that, there's very little to say or do there. In my opinion, I would need that to continue. And I certainly am not buying anything that's not over this. Here, let me show you. Like that wick, right? Like I'm not touching that until I flip that doji. Until I get above that level, I'm not going to go near it. But if it did, that would be of interest, right? That closing price, you can see that pretty clearly, right? Where you have completely rejected and then kind of go from there. So you might want to watch that. Let me get rid of that so you can see the volume. Kind of go from there. But that's definitely something that I would be looking at. Yeah, if you can hold over there. BMI and American Express. So American Express is definitely one we should be going over.
BMI is not something that's on my radar. I like looking at these little names. And I start drilling into some of these little names. They all look like they're going to explode, right? And they could still go up as the market goes down, right? As the index goes down, so we could see some small cap names actually continue to rally. So, but if we take a look at where we're at right here, yeah, I mean that could continue. Just watch when earnings are. Looks like earnings were good. I mean, are you up? Yeah. I mean, like these are the kinds of names I'd be paying attention to. So here's your flag, right? And now you're breaking out of your flag. Yeah, I could see looking at this. I'd probably like more volume, but I can totally see how that can continue to push. Absolutely. So definitely something that I would be watching if I was interested in that name. Sure. So there's very little to say here, guys. Like to me, I just think that this thing's just going to continue to push. It's something we played around with the other day, on earnings. But there's your flag, there's your breakout, and I look. Financials to me look like they're just going to absolutely explode. They really look like the next sector that's just going to keep grinding higher. Visa, MasterCard, they all just look to me like they're just going to keep going higher and higher and pushing. And again, if you take a look at the regional banks, they're saying the same exact thing. So I definitely would not be sleeping on that at all. They would definitely be names I would be interested in. CMC, let's take a look at it. So go from there. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get that. I don't know. I don't know that I'm getting involved there. I would need to flip that before I'd even think about it. Before I even flip that, I'd want to see that like really get over there. I mean, that's a rejection to me. I'm over, and then I formed a doji. That's not really where I want to be. And I don't even have anywhere near above average volume. That's super weak. Right. And we've already rejected here how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would hold off on that until I see what's going on there. Terry, AA, let's take a look at AA and go from there. Yep, you're starting to see a pullback in these kinds of names. So again, I'd be a little cautious here. See these higher lows? Watch this. So see that? So you popped, then you tried to rally back over it. You're unable. You're trying to get a golden cross. I don't know that you're going to get it or not. And that whole sector, to me, looks like we're starting to roll a little bit here. Right? Like we got right to resistance and we stopped on XLB. So it is possible that these names need a rest, right? That is possible that they're going to set up for some kind of rest after that enormous move that they had. And this is exactly what I'm talking about with some of these other names like Tesla. See how the RSI is just completely imploding, right? Doesn't mean that you're going to fall off a cliff, right? Doesn't mean that everything's going to just get slaughtered, right? So you could just go sideways for a period of time and build before pushing again. That could absolutely happen as you get more and more data. So be real careful thinking that we're just going to fall off a cliff again, because it's very hard to see that with the amount of sectors and stocks that are hitting highs, right? People are going to buy stocks now. You can say it until earnings turn and they become, disastrous, and then kind of go from there. But, names like this, and watch these kinds of RSI levels, and then just kind of watch how they work their way down. Oh, you're welcome, Terry. So, but all right, guys, I'm going to jump into the trading community right now and get a head start over there. We're going to start doing these at 8:15. I just think it's better for everybody to kind of get a jump on the day a little bit. And we're going to start doing them Monday through Friday. So just keep that in mind, and we will go from there. Everybody have a great day today. Remember that Powell trades the market, right? So in other words, what do I mean by that? The market is going to move because of Powell. It's really that simple. So tomorrow he's going to speak, right? So he is in charge of the trading right now. It's starting to dissipate a lot. It did dissipate last week, but when I say he trades the market, he's going to move the market. So if he speaks tomorrow and he starts saying that employment is an issue, this market will come in. So just keep that in mind. All right. And we'll go from there. All right, everybody. Have a great day.